with Dr. Ed Montgomery. Brought to you by ALC Global.
Oh, you can be seated in the presence of the Lord. First of all, let me welcome you to ALC as the place. To those of you that are watching by internet, thank you for joining us. I'm Ed Montgomery, aka Dr. Ed. Thank you for being here at this space and at this time right now. Wherever you are watching from, we consider you a part. And when I say you consider you a part, you are a part. And our membership is all over the place. So I welcome those of you who are part of ALC online, as well as those of you who are here in this house. Don't forget, especially those of you online, we don't always know where you are, what's going on with you. So you have to do a little bit extra. You got to push buttons. You have to make comments. You have to share it with people. You have to subscribe, all of those different things. It's a little different than what we do in the house. But we were online for 2 years. So because of that, ALC has been online since online existed. We were online over a decade ago, and probably more than that. We were online when there were 2 people online and we had one of them watching us. And it sure was funny too, it was funny. And we had people interviewing people in hallways and all of that. And we might have got 5 people or 7 people online because it only had like 400 bandwidth or something. And then it kept turning in circles, then it stopped, then it turned in circles for another 5 minutes, then stopped. It was like that. But what happened is we learned it. And by learning it, we didn't realize that ultimately we would have to use it. And so it was God preparing us. So that's one of the reasons we will not let go of online. We're constantly seeking to improve it, even right now, to improve it, to open up cameras, to open up all different things, to where our online community will be right in sync with our in-house community. So thank you so much for all that you do. And thank you for your contributions. Thank you for being givers. In this day and age, it's hard to determine that a lot of times because people are so here and there and so busy, and things are here, prices up, all of these things that are going on. And so I'm always careful to say thank you. My grandmother taught me, you always say thank you. Some people tell me, say, well, you say thank you too much on the air, on the letters, and that. I can never, ever say thank you enough. Because you don't have to do it. And you don't have to do it here. You could be doing it somewhere else. So I am thankful that you're here helping us take this out. And what are we taking out? We are taking out a message. We are a bridge of, I call it enlightenment, and we are helping people to open up themselves and get to know who they are, and not just their spiritual selves, but their lives, which is spirit. And we believe that people have changed, made leaps and bounds in their lives and their careers, and we want to help doing it. I want to dig deeper. I don't want to stay where I am. I want to keep it moving. So thank you for helping us to be that bridge of enlightenment to those that are around us. Are you ready to move on further? Let's go. All right. A few weeks ago, I began something, and it began with a concept of enlightenment, and I started talking about, and I'm talking about it now, about the recreation of your world. Now, I'll never forget when I came out of, when I went into college, when I went into school, went into ministerial school, and which was not just ministerial school, but it was college. It was historical black college that I attended. And when I went in, I just knew I was getting ready to learn because I was going to change the world. When I got out, I just knew I was going to change the world. And so I was waiting and ready for how is that method going to be to change the world, going to get the world saved. I'm talking about the world. You know, it took me a while to realize how big the world is. And going to reach the world for Jesus, it took a while to realize, you know, this is a big world. And it can take me a while to reach the world for Jesus. And then I found myself in, Sandra and I found myself in a small country church. And probably not very many people in there. And, you know, I'm in my early 20s, and this is where I was. And I sat there when I first got there, and I said, is this the world for Jesus? But I didn't stay there very long or in that mindset, because I was just really glad to be there. And the people were so kind. I was in Dallas, and we were getting ready to get evicted out of our apartment. And it was an apartment that didn't have no locks on it, and the roaches came and went as they pleased. And so we were glad to get out of there. They got us out of there fast. They're the ones saw the eviction, but they didn't tell me till a year later. You know, there was an eviction notice on your door, Pastor. I said, oh, really? I said, I was going to pay it eventually. I was working. And they said, well, that's why we got you out that fast. You were supposed to be evicted by noon. That's why we got you out at 11:59. I said, well, I sure appreciate it. But I learned something about the world. That we are not called to save the world. We are called to be influencers and be effective in the world where we are. And the world where we are is not the globe. It is the space where our friends and our loved ones and our families and our children and our co-workers, where we are. And we are called to navigate that world. As a matter of fact, that is what instigated the slogan that became a part of ALC, building the people who shape the world. And of course, we always showed worlds and everything, but in my mind, I never saw us as shaping a globe as much as I saw each of us learning to shape the world that is around us. The people, the things, where we live, the property we're on, the resources we have. That is our world. Now, if you can shape that world, and someone else can shape their world, and someone else can shape their world, then if we learn how to connect our worlds, then we discover that our world increases as we connect. But you don't connect merely because you like people. We try to connect financially. We try to connect so that we can pool our money, and a lot of it works, a lot of it doesn't. But what we learn spiritually is that what connects us, there was a passage of scripture out of Ephesians 4 that talks about every joint supplying. And we learn what connects us is a thing called love. Say it with me, love. We don't say it often enough. We don't tell our friends often enough. We don't tell our spouses, our loved ones often enough that I love you. We say, you know I do. Do I have to say it? Well, yes, you do every now and then, because it's what? And so I began this a few Sundays ago, and I got interrupted with a tithe message that I really did not want to do, but I did it anyway. And I said we've got to go back to something else, because here is what's happening in our world around us. From the time of the 1619s in history, and we look back at 1642, and we know the story of the Mayflower that came from England and settled in what was they called America, or what Christopher Columbus called America. And he was the one that named it. It's so funny about that word America, because when we talk to people, they say, where are you from? I am from America. You're from America? Yes, I am an American. Well, what do you think Canadians are? Huh? Canadians are Americans. Why? Because they live in. Canadians are Americans. Mexicans are Americans. Hondurans are Americans. Chileans are Americans. Venezuelans are Americans, because they're in South America, the hemisphere. It is the arrogance. We are the United States of, they are Canada of America. But it is the arrogance for the United States to take a name, America, and to say we are the only Americans. Now that's arrogance. And then Christopher Columbus comes along. I know you know he sailed the ocean blue, but he messed up a whole lot of other folk too. And I mean, we're learning, history is slapping us in the face every day. We're learning more and more and more. And then he called the people that were in America. He never reached the continent, it was just the West Indies. He called them Indians because he was looking for India. They were not called, they were not Indians. They were, all of their tongues considered them people of the land that were not, they were not a race. People who came in 1642 came with a concept of spirituality. They had just left what was considered to be the Reformation of the church, the breaking away from the Catholic Church. And now they were Protestants or protesters. Martin Luther, protesters. Calvinists, protesters. And what they believed is that we were predestined. Some folk would go to heaven and some folk would not. Only 144 would go to heaven, the others would not. But which ones is it? No one knew. And the Calvinist doctrine they became the Puritans, and the Puritans were trying to stay as pure as they could so that they could be one of the 144,000 that would go to heaven. So England wanted them out. They were causing a major ruckus in England. They were calling the king sinful because the king wanted to marry somebody else, and he was already married to Victoria, and a whole bunch of stuff going on. And so they wanted to get rid of the religious Puritans, and so they shipped them off to this country that Christopher Columbus had surnamed America. They landed on Plymouth Rock, and they knelt down on the bones of the people who were already here that they called Indians, who were not Indians. They were the indigenous people of this land. And they knelt on their bones because 9 of 10 of them had already died, since the earliest ones who had come to America had brought smallpox. And they said, thank you for this land that you have given us, this city that is set on a hill. And they prayed and they thanked God for the land, for their religious freedom. And within no more than a decade, if not less, they began to create their institutions. Their institutions were Harvard. Then they built Yale. This was in the 1600s. Yale, William and Mary, Amherst. All of these different schools began as religious schools teaching a religious doctrine of Calvinism. Calvinism was predestination, that God had already predestined who is going to heaven and who is not going to heaven. And so what happened later on, they figured out they couldn't live with that kind of doctrine. It was tearing their minds up. They couldn't live with predestination, that they had to go to God every single time to find out if God loved them. So they left that doctrine alone and took another piece of that doctrine that believed in that you prospered yourself and then you prospered your country and built your country, and that's how those two things merged. You loved God and you loved your country. But they left the African enslaved person with the type of Christianity that says predestination. So that's why people of color were always begging God, stop by. I know I'm filthy rags, but will you at least have mercy upon me? And it became a people who constantly begged God for mercy. Well, this continued on, and churches were built, and black churches were built, and these things were built because they had already built another construct that was called race. Race does not exist. There is no such thing as race. The Indians, who they called the Indians, but were people of the land, understood. They didn't consider themselves as a race. Africans, where they had taken people from, were not considered a race. They didn't see themselves as a race. They saw themselves as people who sprung up from the land. Race was created about 550 years ago. Now you say, so what are you saying? There is no white. Well, then that means there is no black. Of course there is not. There is no black. There is only the human race. But although there is no race, the creation of race created a thing called racism. And the creation of racism was centered and pillared by the concept of the Puritans who came to this place called America, stating that it is the city set out on a hill, and it was believed that it would be a place of the new religion, of religious freedom, and where Christ would ultimately come, not Jerusalem, they had changed it, where Christ would ultimately come back after they had fixed the country to be a country that followed the Christian rule. America was destined under their tutelage to become a Christian nation. The only problem about a Christian nation is because when folk other than you become Christian, they have a tendency to bring in other ideas. So you do need the racism to say, you are not enough. Racism is not just is not just a thing that, oh, they're a racism. It's more than that. It is a sickness. It is a soul sickness that eats away at the fiber of Christness. It is a sickness that is unknown. It is there but unknown. Even you say, well, black people can't be racist. Oh, yes, they can. But black people are not racist against white people. I'm working on not using that particular thing. I'm gonna use non-melanated. I'm working on that. But black people are not racist against non-melanated people. Black people are also racist against melanated people because they have been taught to hate themselves. And when they're taught to hate themselves, it is the natural urge of the spirit to seek value for yourself or to seek yourself in others. When we fall in love, we don't fall in love with the other person. We fall in love with our concept of ourself that is in that other person. And then it progresses from there, and then we find out that person ain't like me. We wake up on the other side of the bed and we say, who in the heck is that? And we say, they're not nothing like me. And we don't know who they are. And so we were hoodwinked for a while. A little bamboozled because of that thing we consider to be love. And that's what that racism against ourselves can do. So we seek value in others around us to tell us that we are somebody, to tell us that we are special, to tell us that if I know my mama taught me I had to be twice as good as the non-melanated. I had to be twice as good as a lawyer to be the best lawyer than non-melanated lawyer. While they was just going around, oh brother, what's going on? And they got all the jobs. But you had to be twice as good. But then you discover once you got twice as good that they didn't get the job because they were twice better than you. You thought they may have been. Well, they must be better than me. I'm twice as good as them. But they must be 3 times because they got the job. And you didn't realize they got the job because their uncle was the head of the corporation who bought the subsidiary. And so you're already bamboozled. You're already hoodwinked, led astray and led amok, as Malcolm said. So you're still looking at this sense of value that if I can at least get there, I will carry some value until you finally get old enough to understand that the problem is not out there, but the problem is in here. And this is what our preachers of today are switching and changing to. No longer are we pointing to a God that we beg not to pass us by. No longer are we pointing to a God that we say, if you'll just stop by for a little while. No longer are we pointing our people toward a God who is somewhere on some distant throne hovering above the earth or floating in the gaseous elements of the and stratosphere. No longer are we pointing to that kind of God, because that's not the kind of God we need. No longer are we pointing and begging God to give us some gold. We can now buy our own gold. We're not begging God for a car. We can buy a car if we got enough money. We're not begging God, please give me that house. Get your credit scores together and your money and do what you need to do and who you need to know. You can find yourself a house. You might not find yourself a mansion, but you can find yourself a house that feels like a mansion to you if you'll change your mindset. A mansion is not square footage. A mansion is how you feel about it on the inside of yourself. This is what it is about, who we are. This is why the church, or what we call the melanated church, the black church, has shifted and changed. Oh, I know there are a lot of us people, melanated people, who think it's the same, who think the preachers are preaching the same. The preachers are saying, every preacher is no longer preaching the same. Everybody, some are, but there's a lot of them that are no longer preaching the same. And they are telling our people, you do not have to find your value in non-melanated ministry. Nor do you find your value in melanated ministry. You find your value in yourself. And this is what I have come to talk about, how to love yourself. How to love yourself. I started it a few weeks ago, but I wasn't pleased with it. And I began to look at certain things, and I began to realize something. That when we speak of the word love, and actually it comes out of Matthew, and I forgot to get a reader, but so I got to wing it today. I didn't ask for one. And it comes out of Matthew 22 and verse 37, but it is so familiar to you, I don't need to necessarily bring one on. And it says this. Jesus said, I quote it anyway. Jesus said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. Someone had asked him, Lord, what is the greatest commandments? They were trying to trick him. He said, thou shalt love the Lord. The first commandment, thou shalt love the Lord with all thy mind, with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength. He said, and the second greatest commandment is this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He said, upon these two commandments hinge the entirety of the law. So tithing is about giving, and giving is about love. So you ain't got to go through all them changes to prove it's not under the law. Jesus said, if you can fulfill these two things, you can fulfill the entire law of Moses. And we are asking in America now, what is the problem of people not loving one another? Why don't they love this person or love that color or love that race or love that thing? And we talk about things of that sort, and we talk about, well, the supremacists and I don't like to use that term, but nationalists and white. And what they did a color wheel of all the colors from white and all the colors in between until they got to black. And they asked little children to put their hand on the wheel and turn it until they found the shade of the color of their skin on the top of their hands. Not one color was white, and not one color was black. Because there is no black and white. There are only shades of brown. Even non-melanated people are shades of brown. So we come to this place right now and we realize that this whole hatred of things and all of this stuff, why do we have to preach about it? Because the brunt of it falls upon the esteem of melanated people. And it keeps the cure away from non-melanated people. Until we talk about loving something, this thing that we love, this thing called love, it does not change. So, we know that the commandments are love the Lord, and number 2 is love your neighbor. Love God, love your neighbor. Now, loving God, it says, don't go any further. Love the Lord. No, just stop right there. Loving God, love the Lord thy God. When it says with all, it means how to love God. The first thing you need to know is, what's the commandment? To love the Lord thy God. What's the second commandment? To love your neighbor. How do you love God? You love God with all of your heart, all your mind, all your soul and strength. How do you love your neighbor? As yourself. Now that's where we come up with the problem. I'm not going to deal with the first one because I'm going to deal with the first one last. I'm going to deal with the loving of God last because that is such an awesome subject. It's going to take me a while. Take me a few weeks to get there. But I did. But I said let me go to number 2 because that seems where the problem is. To love thy neighbor, and we'll deal with that later. The loving of the neighbor, because it says the loving of that's the loving of others. But then the third one is as yourself. And this is what's giving me the fit. It is loving, it is as myself. It is. So are you telling me I must learn to love myself? That if I don't love myself, bless my neighbor's heart? If I don't love myself, my poor boyfriend. If I don't love myself, my poor girlfriend. If I don't love myself, my poor wife or my poor husband. Because if I don't love myself, I will never be able to express love of any sort. I will only be quoting platitudes from an affair to remember, or love story, or something that I saw. Oh, that's too old, Lord Jesus. Let me bring it up to my more younger movies. I will never be able to express things other than cliches from movies and songs. And you sure don't want to talk about love from rap songs today. Okay. Don't you dare quote them. Now, so we learn. You can't listen to the songs today and equate it with love, because most of it is about pleasing others, pleasing him or pleasing her, or letting them know I can do what nobody else can do to make you feel as if you need to be with me, because nobody can do the things that can do that. That was talking about God. Because what we learn is when we think of love, we think of, first of all, of loving someone else, pleasing others, loving other things, loving other places. We think it's selfish to talk about loving ourselves. But the foundation of everything comes from loving yourself. But the problem that I'm having, I would love myself if I could find myself. I'm having a hard time finding myself. Now, what do you mean finding yourself? There are two issues about yourself. It is what you know about yourself and how you imagine yourself. I want you to imagine a screen on the internal place of your life. And on that screen is projected images. And unfortunately, these images come from everywhere. Also in you is another screen, an edited screen, or an edited version of the projected images. These are things that you have taken as who you are, or the truth, or the facts of your life, the truth of who you are. Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Known truth makes you free. Truth does not make you free. It is what you know inside of the knower, the one who is the edited version of you. This is the one you know. You may not know too much about this one, but there's some things you know. You know you ain't going outside looking like that. I don't care what she said. I don't care what he said. I am not going outside looking like that, because that's not me. I'm 60, not 16. I know I'm 70. I can't cover all the gray. It's there. I might try by putting jet black in it, but it'll roll down the sides when I sweat. So I know I'm not going out like that. There are some things I know about myself, and the things that I know about myself, now watch this, watch this. The things I know about myself are not the things that are judgeable. I know I may not be the most agreeable person in the world, but I'm not going to judge myself about it. I like myself. I may not be agreeable. I'm not giving myself up. I may give you up. I ain't giving myself up because myself is the most important thing. People who keep giving themselves up for other people become martyrs to a God that does not exist. I can't keep giving myself to other people because I feel that is love of self. Well, I deny myself so that my children can have. That's wonderful. That's sweet. And I applaud you. But then you face this truth on the airplane that says, put your mask on yourself first, then put it on your child. Your truth is now shaken because that is not the truth you have come to understand. So now, guess what? You've got to adjust your truth here. And the same way it is on the outside. All your Social Security going to your kids. They done took every damn of it. And they're out there blowing and going and everything else with it. And you sitting there home eating cat food. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be the golden years of your life. And you sitting there eating soup. It's good for me. That's not why you eating it. They took your Social Security. I couldn't pay my rent this month. Can I? Somewhere. Like my grandmama said, every tub got to sit where? On his own bottom. Y'all never heard that one, have you? And somewhere you have got to love yourself. Because if you are no good to yourself, you will be no good to anybody else when they are truly in need. No, baby, let's let this month go by. Let's let a couple months go by. You're going to have to get through it these next couple of months and everything. You know, and you saying to yourself, I'm going to do it, but I ain't going to do it right now. You got to learn, at least start, you know, if you got to come off that crack this way. You got to say, hey, I ain't going to do it right now. Let me stop for a little while. Let me see how they do. Now they going to call you up, and it's not just them, but everybody comes out the woodworks. Especially when you hit 65. See, I ain't always been able to preach or to talk about this. I can talk about it now. Especially when you hit 65, it's like a notice goes out on the internet. And then folks' mailbox that say they hit 65 and they got Social Security somewhere, you go call them. And they ain't doing nothing because they ain't got no life anyway. Oh, hell, heck, I got a life. Oh, Jesus. Forgive me, Jesus. I didn't mean to say that. H.E. Helmer mayonnaise. That's what I say. I have a life. And whatever kind of life I got, it's mine. Look at yourself and say, it's mine. And your children are saying, oh, move on, Pastor. But I got to get to the point that I got that. But see, what the problem is these two projectors. One projector is where everything flashes on the screen. From the time you are a baby, everything flashes on the screen. How mama took care of you. You learn mama, you learn daddy, you learn auntie, you learn all these people, you learn all these things. These images flash on the screen. When you feel a certain way or you feel good about it, you want to, you know, and somebody says you are intelligent and you feel, and you know that about yourself, you take that particular image, edit it out of the main screen and put it on your knower screen. I am intelligent. And you go through life doing these kind of things and pulling these things out. And you pull this one and somebody says you're compassionate. And you notice you really are a compassionate person. So you say, this is what I am, I'm compassionate. You discover then I'm a little selfish. Okay. All right, I'm a little selfish. Okay. So you put that there, even in your knower. I know it. This is what I know about myself. I'm a little selfish. I can work on it, but I know this about myself. See, you have to come to the understanding of yourself. You have to face yourself. You have to know in your knower that this is who you are. I can be a little distant at times. I know that. I can get off into my own world at times and then poke my head up and realize, oh my God, I ain't even called folk. I know that about myself. Everything about yourself is not a virtue. Everything about yourself is not you're sweet and you're kind. I know you want to, put that on the internet dating online thing, but it's not what you are. Everything about it's sometimes your colors don't coordinate, and you know, and they told you they didn't coordinate, but you didn't want to listen. So you left it on the other screen. Don't tell me about my colors. I know how to do my colors. No, you don't know how to do your colors. Call an image consultant. Call somebody that can help you so you can learn how to do it. And so these are things that you know about yourself. And what you learn about knowing about yourself is this. The other thing, this is your self-knower. This is your self-truth. What goes on the other screen becomes your self-image. What everybody plasters on there. Oh, you got a good personality. You go around through life with a good personality. You are a wreck. You have no personality whatsoever. People smile, you sit there. Hello, how are you? Hello. Now, inward you might be, hello. But outward, hello. And they walk away. They got no personality whatsoever. And won't nobody tell you. And then they did tell you, you have no personality. You get off on frivolous things. And you're like a dog with a bone, and you're talking about one thing and something went wrong. You won't let it go. It's been 52 weeks and you still are mad about that thing. You won't let it go. It's eating you up inside. You won't let it go. So what the point is, see, you say, but that's on my screen. No, it's no longer on your screen because you know that's what you do. Well, I didn't put it in my knower because that ain't me. No, it's not in the truth. It's not in the truth part. You know where it is? It's sitting there in the projection room next to you in suitcases. It's called baggage. And you drag it it's between your self-image and your self-truth. And you dragging it along in life everywhere you go. Sometimes you set Kool-Aid on it and watch the screens. And you wonder why life is so hard. It is so hard because you're dragging around this mess. And the reason you don't want to put it in your knower, in other words, I know this me. You don't want to put it in there because you want to judge it. If you put it there, that's your inner space, and you will judge it. And the reason you will judge it is because you've been taught by theology, doxology, religion, the church you went to, the other church you went to down the street. You have been taught to judge yourself and to tell yourself that you can't love yourself even though you are doing what they tell you you ought not do, or being what you ain't supposed to be, how they feel scripture said you ain't supposed to be. I don't care who you with, who you love, who you around, who you this or who you that. When it's in that space of self-truth, that's none of your goddamn business. That's my truth. That is my awareness about myself. It is my, what they call my authenticity. It is what I am. It is my consciousness, and you have no business in that sanctuary unless I open the gate and let you in. You can't get in there with just a dinner. Well, let me take you to dinner. No, dinner ain't gonna get it, baby. I know some folk all it take is a dinner and a Lamborghini. But dinner and Lamborghini ain't gonna get it, baby. You gotta have a little bit more smooth talk than that. I may let you in, but you're gonna have to have a little bit more than what you coming with. Now, I know, hey, I'm not crazy. I know that you may be coming at me and everything you saying ain't true. And that you pumping an illusion, trying to pump an illusion into my head. Well, if I'm game for an illusion today, at least I'll know it's an illusion So when it's over, I ain't. Lord, stop me. But at least know it's an illusion. Know they playing game and running game on you. At least know that. Don't be sitting up there, oh, Jesus has sent me someone. Oh, thank you, Jesus, for sending me the right person. Jesus ain't sent you nobody. Jesus is not sitting on this throne going through a list, checking it twice to see whether you're naughty or nice, and gonna send you a lover. You can find your own lovers. Haven't you figured that out yet? What time is it? Get me off this stage. Get me off this stage. I'm looking for my soulmate. My soulmate. Baby, there's more than one soulmate. How you gonna find a soulmate with 7 billion people on the planet? We're gonna pick this up because, and tell your friends we're gonna pick it up. Because when you really find out why the truth about yourself, the authentic truth about yourself, cannot be judged, you will understand what the true gospel is all about. Not what they told you out of Puritans. You will discover what the real gospel is. And when you find out what the real gospel is, you're going to step back and say, this can't be true. It's going to be ringing a bell in your soul. But everything that you think in images are going to tell you it's impossible. You know what got me here and what made me go back into the understanding of loving yourself? Because I realized that the only person that can make me hate me is you. And what I mean by that is, it's someone else that can say things to make me hate myself. And what they said is a lie. But then when I believe their lies, who tell me that my skin is all wrong, or that my flesh is not right, too big, too small, shoe size is not what it ought to be. When they tell me I can't come into a corporate office with the kind of hairdo I got. When they beat me up because I happen to marry somebody of a different ethnic background, and other people sneer at me, I couldn't help because I fell in love with them. Other people will try to project their hatred upon you to get you to hate yourself. And when you begin to hate yourself, you take that person sitting in that chair of truth outside of yourself because you don't live there anymore. See, in this body is my mind and my spirit. If I'm taught to hate what I look like and where I come from and the parents that I had, then I won't have a body and I won't have a home and I will be wandering aimlessly in the annals of the cold universe without a home. That is why John 14, Jesus says, I am in my Father, and my Father's in me, and we will come and make our home in you. Because you see, when God is there, there is no judgment. There is no judgment of your sexuality, whether you're gay, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you did this, whether you did that. God doesn't sit at the table and talk about your sins. He sits at the table and talks about your future. And I got this really hit me when they opened up the pictures of this thing they call the James Webb telescope. Any of you know what I'm talking about? If you don't, look it up on YouTube. They sent this telescope up in the air. It is a huge thing, multiple millions of dollars beyond the Hubble telescope. And they sent it. It's actually an African-American man who was in charge of this thing. They sent it 1,000,000 miles from Earth, and it zoomed and it went there. And they created it to have its own self-generating power based on solar. And the thing opened up like a huge parachute, a dish. And it began to capture images from the beginning of the universe. 13 billion light years away. And they saw red dots and red blotches in the other. The longer they let it sit there, they could see they would only sit it there like for a week, but they realized the longer they let it sit there, the more the images pour in. And they saw all of these red splotches in the blackness of space, only to find out the thousands of red splotches, only to realize they were millions. Each red splotch was millions of galaxies. Not stars, galaxies. This whole thing is so big. Non-melanated supremacy means nothing to me. Republicans, Democrats, and the labels you wish to put yourself in and try to scare me because you don't have a hood on your means nothing to me. We'll take your life if I die. I will have run this race with patience. If I leave this place, I have a home somewhere in the cosmos. And if it's that big, then imagine how big my God is. I'm done. Now, how big is your God? Can he dry the tears from your eyes? How big is your God? Can he lift you up when you're downcast? How big is your God? Can he wipe your weeping eyes? How big is your God? Can he pull you out of a depression as you're on your way down that tunnel? How big is your God? Can he settle your heart, regulate your mind, and fix your heart? How big is your God? Can he teach you to love, to forgive, to be sensitive? How big is he? Well, you got to figure that out. God bless you. God keep you. It's my prayer. Thank you.
Hey, this is Dr. Ed. We've been on this journey for over 40 years. Some have been there with us for almost 40. Some have just started this journey with us. But what we've been able to do is help people to find joy, peace, enlightenment. They have grown tremendously, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and it's all because of your contributions, your help, our journey on this road. Take a moment. Make a contribution at myalc.org. That's myalc.org. That's our website. That's our main place where you're even able to watch our show on Sunday mornings. Not only that, but you can also give through our app. And you can download that app from Google Play, or you can download it from the App Store by just typing in Abundant Life Center, or you can type in Ed Montgomery and the Abundant Life Center app will pop up and you can download it. It only takes a few moments, and you can have that way. You can carry it with you on your phone and your iPads and all those kind of good things. Not only that, but you can also do text to give. That's very popular because people are able to give if they forget to be on their website or their app. They can just give right on the spot, real fast, real quick. Sometimes they do text to give even when we're inside of a church service. And you can do that by texting to 713-742-2035. That's 713-742-2035. Or you could give through our P.O. Box. Safe, sound, secure. You can give, you can make sure you put a stamp on the envelope, but you can, write us a little note, drop me a little note, whatever you want to do, and mail it. There are some folks that's just, hey, I'm just going to mail this. And you can mail your contribution, and that's to the Abundant Life Center, P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. I'm going to say it again. That's that old radio thing. You got to say it twice. Abundant Life Center, P.O. Box 772-300, Houston, Texas, 77215. Continue on this journey with us. And if you're new for the first time, start this journey with us. I promise you, not only will it change your life, but you'll change the life of so many around you. And that'll make you feel real good inside.